What's the deal, guys? It's Mr. Legit. Today we're down here at the Sherwood location and we're going to be doing some roofing anatomy training. Now, we have a few guys in here that have never they don't know anything about the roof. This is a long video, so let's go ahead and get to it. But if you guys haven't, make sure to hit that subscribe button and make sure to hit that like because the YouTube algorithm loves it. So, yep, let's get into it, guys. When the sun comes up, our boys, they get to work. With over 20 years in the roofing industry, we know what it means to be legit. Whether you're in the market for a roof, siding, windows, or gutters, we got you guys covered. We're legit. Roger that? No.
Yeah.
What we're going to be doing today is basically kind of going over the roofing anatomy. Now, the way that this was built for, we're going to be skipping through some of this stuff, this presentation, right? Because I'm sure Ryan went through a lot of it, and I don't want to go through, I mean, it would be kind of redundant, right? But a lot of it, we're going to go, some of it's important, and then basically, I'm not going to get into too much detail about the products, just kind of the anatomy of it. So we might talk about a shingle, but we're not going to be talking about what the name is, the shingles, but I'm sure you guys know it's duration, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and we're going to be going a little bit over the company. So the company directory, so Regina, basically she's helping out in Vancouver for the finances. If you guys have a problem with your check or something, you can go through, you guys can feel free to call her up. Ryan's in part of the sales, Justin's a part of the, Justin runs the production department, and then you have Josh helping out with a lot of the marketing stuff. So if you can't get a hold of Ryan or anybody to call him and say, hey, my appointment's not here, you can call the office, ask for Josh, and he can help you, maybe call the customer, help you guys with anything like that. Or if you guys are at the office and you guys need some marketing tools, ask for him. Here's my story. This is kind of built for somebody else telling the story, if somebody else is presenting this, but for my story, I was born here in Portland. I moved out when I was 5 years old, moved across the bridge to Vancouver, and lived there ever since. Actually, I was up in Oak Harbor, Washington, had my daughter up there. I was on a big commercial job for the Navy on Whidbey Island, doing some roofs over there for a little bit. I have 20 years in the roofing industry, so I've been doing this since I graduated high school. I'm 37 right now. So from roofer to business owner, this is my business. In 2000, or on September 29th, 2011 is when I founded the company, but I didn't have it like from my dad or anything like that, right? It came from the ground up. So my mission is to be honest, to have a great home improvement, to be the best home improvement contractor in the Pacific Northwest. I think that we're the best. I know we're the best roofing company, but to be the best home improvement company is kind of a big. Is a big vision, right? To improve the quality of life for others, employees, homeowners, families, and communities. We do a lot of free roofs. We are in the community. There's a lot of new companies that are popping up, but I think that their struggle is just not being in the community, right? I think being in the community is a big part of our success over the years. So, founded in 2011, I have humble beginnings. We do get a lot of word of mouth. I think that you're on an appointment tonight from word of mouth. We're on the job right now. The customers really love. They think everything's going real smooth. So, word of mouth is a great way. I think there's a huge potential for some growth spurt with everybody here. With the virus, I'm not really sure exactly what it's going to bring us, but I know that we have a huge potential for some growth spurts coming up in 2021 for sure this year, and then we probably have another couple months of the season, so get it while it's good. But when it rains, it's really hard to, when it rains, you can see the roofs leaking, and people buy roofs when it's leaking as well, right? We have good community outreach. This is Rico Roman, which was a foundation from Gary Sinise. What did I say, Captain Dan? But it's not Captain Dan, it's Lieutenant Dan, right? Yeah. So Lieutenant Dan on Forrest Gump, if you guys have ever seen that, yeah. He has a foundation that gives away, they do multiple roofs in the nation that, for veterans or people that have been hurt really at war. So we're a certified platinum contractor, more locations to come, right? So the core values is trust. I think that trust is really a huge part of any business or any relationships that you build. Trust is one of the main core values. If you break it, you just kind of not even a part of, the team. Integrity. Integrity is a really strong word, I think. There's a lot that goes into that. Great craftsmanship on and off the roof. A lot of people think of craftsmanship, they think of just on the roof. I think that, off the roof as well, down to the way that your handwriting is, Stafford. You know what I mean? Like, slow down a little bit, get some good craftsmanship so I can read it. All right, excellent customer service. I think that's really what sets us apart from anything. Is my production background with customers, and always striving to be the best, have the best customer service. All right, our life cycles. I've talked about this a lot, Stafford. You probably know it, but I want to ask you. You've been here for a little bit. Where does Legit's life cycle start? Like, I guess what department? Marketing, exactly. It does. So without leads, right? We don't have anything, right? And after we get leads, what do we do with it? Sell, right? So marketing, and then we go to sales. We have to sell the job. So, and then once it gets sold, what's the next?
RTP.
Huh? RTP. What does RTP mean? Do you know what RTP means? RJ, right?
Yeah. I want to say like road to production or something like that.
Released to production, right? So after you guys sell it, we wait 3 days, right rescission comes, and then bam, we have it goes to the production department. After the production department, and kind of behind the scenes the whole time is really the administration side of things, financials and all that stuff. They're kind of working the whole time behind all of this, right? We need them. So, but I guess the point of this is for you guys to see it is, I mean, we show this to every department because every department is created equal in my book. You know what I mean? Sure, you guys are selling, you guys are the backbone, you guys treat the money, and we need funding. Like, the sales are huge of it, but if we didn't have any leads, you guys wouldn't have anything to sell, right? Or if you guys sold a bunch and it's all easy and backed up in production, it's kind of does that kind of make sense? So if you have a car, right? Sometimes you do need the 2 front tires inflated a little bit more or less or whatever you're going to be doing with it. So, but as a whole, I think that all the tires should be inflated the same. All right. So just don't think that you're better than the marketing department or the roofing department, and vice versa for the marketing, right? I think they're all created equal. All right. So moving on. All right. So back down to the. I could sit and talk, all day long. But let's get into the roofing anatomy. So roofing anatomy. Every roof starts with really a deck. So if we were going new construction, the roofers, we don't put on the decking on the roof, right? It's usually done for us. That's kind of a framer's thing. Can we? Sure, we replace decking, but I like to start with the decking because it's the foundation of the roof, right? So, and really there's 4 different types of decking, right? Mark, give me one.
OSB.
OSB, exactly, right? Can you give me one, Tracy?
Was it CDX or something like that?
Yeah. OSB, you have CDX, RJ? Getting hard now.
Those were the 2 I knew.
Okay. So think. Can you give me one more?
Can't.
Okay. Well, what else have you run into? Are these
Like skip sheeting.
skip sheeting? Yeah. Plywood. Yeah, but plywood.
Right?
Plywood in general is basically your OSB and CDX. You kind of just say it's plywood. Plywood is actually plywood is actually, but they're plying. So what plywood is? Well, let's get there. Hold on. You have 3. Well, there's one more. Tongue and groove, right?
Oh.
So you have space sheeting, tongue and groove, and the space sheeting is almost like shiplap. You put it together, and we'll get into that. But so plywood, you guys guessed it right. This plywood is CDX plywood, and it's just like it says. It plies itself together, right? If you ever go down the road and see the trucks, the plies of them are real like they'll flap in the wind. Now they have 3-ply, 4-ply, 5-ply, depending on the thickness. And what you guys are running into out here in the Pacific northwest of the Portland metropolitan area is 7/16, right? A lot of times we'll say ½ inch and that works too. It's like a 2x4. You don't say 1.5 by 3.5, right? But they actually do have, you know, ½ inch plywood, but 7/16 is typically what you guys are going to be running into. And this is CDX plywood, right? And then you have OSB, right? OSB's plywood too, but what they do is they take a bunch of chips, put glue in it, and press them all together, right? And then depending on the thickness, this stuff's trash though. We don't put it back on, right? If that makes sense, we won't put it back on, but it's out there, and a lot of builders use it, so it's pretty common that you guys will see it.
It's cheaper, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's cheaper, and it swells up too over time. If a little bit of water gets in it, it will swell up, and it won't swell back down. With plywood, it'll get wet, but it won't swell up, and it'll just, I don't know, it's magical, right? OSB board, does anybody know, actually, RJ, what does it stand for? What does OSB stand for?
I read it. Shit.
Tracy?
I don't know what it was.
Orbital strand board.
Huh?
Orbital strand board.
Orbital strand board? Oriented strand board. Pretty good.
What's
So,
the first word? Oriented?
Oriented,
what's going on with this?
You gotta fix the connection right here.
Is that better? Can you hear me? Alright, so oriented strand board, right? So space sheathing is another one. So space sheathing, why in the heck would we use this stuff? RJ, why are we using this, huh?
We don't use it.
We don't use it? Why did they used to use it?
Probably because it's cheaper,
Cheaper?
less material.
Tracy, why do you think that they use that?
I don't know if it has something to do with like the air, like breathing. Not just heat.
Not necessarily, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, it saves money because typically that would be underneath a cedar shack, you know, which is wood.
Shaq?
Yeah.
Shake. You got a pretty thick accent. That's
Yeah.
fine. Then I'm just giving you a hard time. Exactly. So he's got it right there, right? You cannot. Whenever you see this stuff, if you're in an attic, there's no shingles up there. There might be in a separate layers, but typically you'll see. If you put a shingle on this, it would just sag over time, right? It would
Yeah.
sag, and it would pond water and it'd leak like a sieve. So yeah, exactly. You're gonna have cedar shakes on it. So if you guys ever get up there, peek your head up in the attic, and you see this, it's got shakes on top. Even if you guys are on the house, you take a picture of it, and you see shingles, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, and the homeowner's like, one layer. They'll always tell you it's one layer. A homeowner's always gonna say it's one layer, right? When you go up in the attic and you see this stuff, you know it's more than one layer. So you're gonna, we're not gonna get into details about exactly how to measure and all that. It's a lot, but you guys get the gist, right? Now, if you're ever looking to see if layers and you are in the attic, you can go up by the vent and kind of feel, you can see how many layers there are kind of by a vent hole because the roofer has to cut it. So if you guys are ever up that far. All right, so space sheathing, we know what it's for, right? Shiplap. So well, the reason why, I don't really know, I'm just speculating why they said shiplap because it looks like a ship. It's like a lap, like a ship, right? So this right here, we can go over. So unlike space sheathing, you have to put plywood on top, right? So the plywood has to go on top. If you don't, I mean, you have to. It's just impossible to roof without it, right? Now, shiplap is similar. If it's healthy and strong, we can go over the top. We don't suggest that we always want to go over the top of plywood because it makes it a nice flat foundation for the roof to sit on. However, so the reason why we like to go over, if you guys see that hole right there,
Yeah.
and there's another hole right here, and you can see tin shingles, there's a couple more holes. So they're putting them over those because if you put a nail on your shingles and you put it through a hole, is that going to hold anything? No, right? So we have to put those on. Now, this shiplap, if it has more than I'm pretty sure, is it a quarter? If it's more than a quarter, right, inch apart. So when these boards come across, right, they put them together. If it's more than a quarter inch, right, we have to put on plywood for warranty issues. Why do you think that is, Tracy?
Well, obviously there's plenty of places for water to get in, but then I don't see how you build a nail right. And, I mean, there'd just be all kinds of
Exactly.
issues.
So
Yeah.
if you have a board running, okay, so this picture's a little off, but this is the gutter, and our shingles run this way, right? Do you see it,
Right,
Tracy?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So if our nail line, we have a pretty.
Going and out.
Well, I think that we only have like an inch nail zone, right? So when you're nailing it, if your nail zone is right here on the crack, and the roofer's hitting all the way across, and it's going in between those boards,
Yeah.
it's really not going to hold on to anything. So I know as a roofer that we used to do that all the time, because the guy that I worked for, he used to install over this stuff, right? And I was a roofer, and I was roofing it, right? And I'm hitting the nail zone, but I just felt it wasn't hitting anything, so I could pick my shingle up, and I'm like, huh.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
what do you think I did as a roofer? I didn't just leave it. I took my gun and I went up about an inch to where you weren't on the line, and I was off the nail zone, but it was still better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
So what does that do? Voids the warranty, right? So anybody that's going to go over this stuff, that's what they're going to do. I'm not saying that the roofers are going to do a crummy job, but one thing that you can't avoid is impossible is hitting on that nail zone, because you're supposed to be hitting on that nail zone, and if it lines up in between those boards, it's going to blow off eventually, right? Tongue and groove, we can go over this stuff. It's pretty it's really common on okay, so first of all, tongue and groove, what it is, it's usually 3/4 inch, and it has a little tongue and a groove, right?
Yeah.
So it's got a male and a female end that just connects together, and stuff's beautiful, first of all. It's really gorgeous stuff if it's done right. A lot of the times, the reason why they don't use it is because it's super expensive. I mean, this stuff is so expensive that you don't see it anymore. You see it on really old homes, and usually where you see it on in the old homes is the overhangs, because it was so much money. So you'll see them on the overhangs, and then you'll see the tongue and groove on the overhangs, and then in the middle you'll see space sheeting, because back then they didn't even have shingles, weren't even invented back then, right? It was all
It was cedar, wasn't it?
Yep, exactly. Up here, yeah, exactly.
I
Cedar.
have a 100-year-old house that definitely, I've got that. I mean, we found all kinds of things. But
Really?
cedar burns really easy too.
It does. That's why we try to get rid of it. In California, a lot of it's like tile, right? And and if you broke a piece of tile in California, you can imagine how hard it is to find that like if it's a 100-year-old house
Oh,
or whatever.
yeah.
Because they're taking them and bending them over the knee, so you have to be like, hey, where's that guy's knee at?
Yeah.
To make another piece of tile, right? So they're all a little bit different. So basically, the tongue and groove, we can go over it typically because it is connected and they are together really tight.
Right.
But we still, to pull up all these nails and to prepare it, I would suggest, always suggest to put the plywood on. If it doesn't have plywood, we're suggesting to put plywood on because it's a better install, right? Let's see what else here. All right, so underlayment.
Quick question.
What's up?
So we have a house that has all OSB on it, we gotta replace a couple pieces of plywood, plywood, not OSB, right?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So if you're of course. So if you're in the middle of the roof and you have 10 pieces of plywood, everything has OSB. We're still going to use CDX. Now, when you're on the overhangs of it and they have OSB, which is really uncommon, but sometimes you'll see OSB on the overhangs and it's just absolutely miserable. Is this working at all?
Spotty.
So yeah, it's absolutely miserable. Because it looks terrible. I'm sorry. It looks awful, right? But the problem is if we take that plywood off and put CDX on, it'll sound like a sore thumb. It's kind of like, do you guys know what orange peel in a vehicle is?
Yeah.
So orange peel in a vehicle, actually, if you go, in any car that's like from Ford or whatever, or any car that's on the production lines, they pretty much typically have orange peel, right? So if you go get in an accident and you take it to the, let's say you got in an accident and you take it to the repair shop or the auto body shop, and he comes back out and he makes it look super, like the quarter panel super clean, it'll look terrible. Even though it's better, it'll just sound like a sore thumb, right? So they intentionally put orange peel in it. Same thing with us.
Right.
Even though that we should be using CDX in the overhang, we still use because you can visually see it. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Sure.
Totally.
All right, so what do you guys know about underlayment? Ryan probably did a pretty good job on it so far. What can you tell me about it?
We'll find out, I guess.
What's it for?
Keeps the decking waterproof and intact.
How does it get wet?
If let's say we're putting the underlayment on and
My shingles, I'm going to shingle it, and your underlayment is not. My shingles are waterproof.
but if in the process of of putting on a new roof if we can't shingle it in the same day or something like that. I know the underlayment is waterproof and has a warranty up to 60 days.
So if we shingle it the same day, do we need to do it? Because I can do a house in a day. So if we don't need it, if we can do it the same day,
Yeah.
we don't need it, huh?
No, you still need it
Why?
because it just acts as another layer of protection for the roof.
It does.
Really waterproof.
It does. It does.
Shouldn't-
So yeah. So do you know why? Explain it. The best you can.
Well, ultimately your shingles aren't waterproof, so that's your first layer of defense. The other thing it does as well, it breathes, so as far as residual moisture that comes through your attic and so on would drain away from your deck and that. And then for some reason, if there's anything that comes off of your roof, that's a layer of protection.
Yep,
right there.
exactly. So there's a layer of protection. So like Ryan was saying though, your shingles aren't waterproof. It's funny how sometimes you guys, so like I said, you guys should rewatch this because you guys are gonna listen. Your mind's gonna start wandering off, right? I suggest watching this twice or going through more training because your mind's gonna wander off and you're not gonna be, it's gonna just go off on like a little. You're gonna be thinking about it, right? So you're right, close, but I guess that, like Ryan was saying, it's not waterproof. And the best way I can explain it is taking that Aquafina bottle, for example, right? Right, so this right here, can I use this as a demonstration? So think about this, here's Mark's water, right? Think about the air out here, right? And this is great to do at home, really, too. If you have a water bottle and I've never met somebody that can really explain it that well in the home.
Okay.
Right? But you always take this out and you're like, all right, think about this plastic. It's waterproof? Sure, it's waterproof, right? Of course it is. If you put water in it, it's not going to leak, right? Same with the shingle. Shingles are waterproof. They're water shedding, right?
Yeah.
So think of this as a shingle, right? And you got a piece of paper or something? Okay, so think of this. I don't have it with me. Sorry, guys, for being unprepared. It's been a while since I've done this. But think about this as the underlayment. What's the underlayment called that we use?
Defense.
Deck defense, right? So this is deck defense, this is a shingle, right? And my hand is a piece of plywood, right? And I was getting kind of confusing. But if my hand touches this right here, right? My hand's wet, right?
Condensation.
Right? So condensation, exactly, there's the dew point. Since this water's cold, which is cold water outside, and your attic is warmer, the dew point will make it have moisture. It'll condensate, right? So what this does, if this was deck defense, right? And you take your hand and you go like this paper will obviously get wet, but you can use your imagination.
Right, exactly.
This will not get, it's like it will not get, it's waterproof. It's not going to get the plywood wet, which will last. But if we put warm water in here, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to condensate, will it? If it's the same temperature as the room temperature, it will be waterproof. Does that kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. That's why we choose to use the best. Now, so what do we use, right? This stuff is basically, you guys already know about it, but it's ice and water barrier. We're not going to go too far into names and all the other manufacturers. That'd be a whole nother session. But we do use this stuff. Ice and water shield is actually Weatherlock G, and we use it for what, Tracy? Why don't we put that stuff on?
I'm sorry, I was making a note.
Oh yeah, the self-sealing ice and water barrier, which is Weatherlock G. Why do we use this stuff?
That's going to completely seal the plywood from the weather.
On the weather. So we put it. So do we use it on the whole house, or why can't? But doesn't the deck defense do it? Ice and water barrier. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm sorry. That's the one that you put on the edges then.
Yep,
right?
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I thought we
It's
were
all
on
right.
underlayment yet.
No, we are on underlayment.
But
This is all. I want to be talking about this
Yeah.
segment. We're going to be
Okay.
talking about underlayment right here, right?
Okay.
So this is a type of underlayment, and right here, typically, and what are we at? Like, I think we're at like what, a couple 100 feet above sea level right here, maybe.
Right, yeah.
A lot of people are like, "What? You're so far inland, 200 feet. We're not really much above sea level, right?" So what does that mean for us, for Oregonian Washingtonians right here? But so what does that mean for us, right? It means that we don't really need this stuff. How often do we get snow?
Yeah.
Right? So it's important, but we don't need to go see how this picture's. This picture's not from us. They're actually like in the mid, like wherever it snows a lot more in the northern part of the hemisphere. They'll actually even go up more than just 3 feet. They'll go up 6 feet, down the valleys, and they get really crazy with this stuff because the ice damming, the ice damming gets ridiculous. We don't ever have ice damming, right? We just don't have it. We have snow, but it'll melt, and then, you know, we might have it. I don't know.
What about some of the gorge areas? The homes along
That's
the gorge?
exact. So going to that. That's a great point, Tracy. So when you go up in elevation,
Yeah.
you don't even have to go to the Orge. You can go to like the West Hills, and they have like, you know, they get a lot more snow up there, but they don't get too much damming. But yeah, you go up to the gorge, and they get the wind, the eastern winds, and they get that real cold air blowing down the gorge. That stuff will freeze up bad. So over there, when you guys have to think about it, because the other people in Portland, they didn't think about that, right? And then when you get up in elevation, you're like, oh, I know what I'm gonna do to them. I'm gonna get them on the weather-like G, because you have to, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? And the other guy, he didn't think about that. So if I came in after you and you just didn't think about it, and I'm gonna be like, well, look, man, here's where he messed up. Boom, you're on elevation. He's like, we do get a lot of snow up here. I'm like, yeah, that's why. That's what just, you know, makes you a little bit more professional. Do you guys have any questions about this? Oh yeah, there's. I mean, I can. So
Goes in the valleys as well.
it goes in the valleys around penetrations and along the.
But along the edge, how far do you normally go? You said that? Like along the
You
roof
can go
line,
3.
If it's in a
You can go
bad
3
zone?
feet. Yeah, if it's in a bad zone, you go 3 feet. We'll put
3 feet?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So 3
okay.
feet. The reason you go. Why do you think we go 3 feet, Tracy?
I thought.
Because that's how long the roll is, right?
Oh,
So the stuff it's 60 feet by 3 feet.
okay.
All right. So another thing to it is it's super sticky stuff. I mean, this stuff is super sticky. Basically, you guys have all felt it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on then.
So they were asking, and I didn't really know how to answer it, whether Lachie looks like a shingle. What does it need granules for?
Oh, yeah.
That's a great question. So the granules, typically you don't really need them. The reason why we have the granules is, so the reason I like them, if you have a shingle down there, if you're shingling it, and and your shingle will stick to it a little bit smoother, there's a couple reasons why. It'll last a little bit longer. It'll hold in so if you have, they have Weatherlock without the Weatherlock G. The G stands for granule,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So the granule has a little bit more granules.
Yeah.
So why? Let's go. That's kind of a head. That's a head. But let's ask ourselves this question right here. Why do they have granules? Why is there granules in a shingle? UV protection, right? So that's going to help out a little bit right there as well. Walkability, and longevity, really. All right. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
All right. So then they have the asphalt saturated felt paper, right? This stuff is kind of, I actually used to install this stuff all the time. The problem with this stuff, right, is there's just one of the main issues with it. I mean, there's a ton of issues with it, but one of the main issues with it is, I know as a roofer, when we used to install this stuff on a October day, right, and even during a summer day, if you guys know what dew is, right? Dew.
Yeah.
So dew comes out, hits this up, and it'll swell up, right? It'll actually swell up and cause a lot of bumps. Now I just talked to you guys how important the underlayment is, right? Now, let's say this stuff started bubbling up. I wish I had a picture, but I don't. You can imagine how this stuff will bubble up. I'll find one. Now,
Just like that wet paper right there.
yeah, exactly. Just like this wet paper is getting, right? See that? See that? So how do you think we get the bubbles out when we're roofing it? Because we have to lay our shingles nice and flat.
Or cut a hole.
We cut a hole. So now what's perfect, what's supposed to be waterproof, we take our knife out and we start slicing and dicing, right? And when we start slicing and dicing, we're just taking the integrity out of the roof, right? So it doesn't make any sense. That's why I don't like this stuff. So, and I used to do it all the time. Not at legit, but at the companies I used to work for, that's all we did. I just slice and dice. I had to. Otherwise, he wants me to take it all off and replace it, but that's can be costly. So they came out with synthetic, which does not absorb anything. It's a lot lighter for us to carry up. It's actually better for the world, really. You know, it's synthetic.
Yeah.
It's awesome stuff, right? So I'm sure Ryan's talked to you a little bit. I don't want to go too far what it is, but this is just kind of what it is, right? All right, flashing drip edge metal. So there's two places where you put drip edge metal. You're gonna put it along the what, Mark?
At the fascia and on the barge.
What area is the fascia called? Which we're gonna get to. This is almost later. Should almost go back to this. I'm gonna go back to this because you haven't learned the anatomy. This should actually be later. All right, so let's talk about types of roofing. 3-tab. You guys all know what 3-tab is? It's 3-tab. So what is that? Is that 3-tab? Is that 3-tab? Is that 3-tab, Tracy? What is it, RJ? Architectural, right? So 3-tab is kind of a thing of the past. We really typically don't install. I honestly, I've been doing this like 20 years, and I've installed maybe 10 3-tab roofs, right? It's just we don't. It's old school, like super old school,
Is
right?
that the one that has like, there's like 3 little?
It has 3 tabs. So if
Yeah.
you look at a shingle and you see 1, 2, 3 tabs, that's 1 tab,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, it's
Yeah.
3 tabs. So it's really thin stuff. It's kind of dated, and it's just I don't know. It's
There's
just,
no dimension to it. You
yeah, there's
don't
no
tell it.
dimension. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
We also have concrete tiles, which you're going to run into. Concrete tiles are, so what they are, they're really concrete, right? They're concrete tiles, and they don't really work that well up here. Sure, you could do a great job, but what happens is the sand will start wearing off of the tile or the concrete, right? And it'll go into the valleys, and about 20, 25 years later, it doesn't find its way out of the valleys. So it'll back up in the valleys and it'll leak a lot because we get so much rain. Like if you're in California, they don't have that much rain to really wear off. I'm sure it would take a lot. They perform a lot better in the Southwest
Yeah,
than they
so
do
heat
in the
like
Northwest.
Arizona or something.
Arizona, sure. There is
Yeah.
Arizona. Like I was down there a couple years ago, and I'm looking at these roofs, and there's no shingles. Like the shingles are missing. And I'm like, well, when it does rain, what are they gonna do? Grab a bucket and just put it
Yeah,
on it?
yeah.
Like, oh. But
Monsoon season.
yeah, that does it does. It get they get a
Shouldn't have missing out.
yeah. Okay, so the flat membrane, there's TPO, there's torch down, there's a lot of different flat membranes. What we use is the deck seal. So you guys are going to use decks. There's a lot in here. That's just say membrane. This one is a TPO, but does that kind of make sense? So you guys have all seen it. It's going to be really hard to identify each one today, but it's a flat. They call it a membrane roof, and we use deck seal. So if you guys go to a house, there's a back patio. It's Owens Corning. We use the deck seal. Okay.
Okay. Like on shed dormers, you see that.
On if it's below a 312.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So if it's a 312 and below, we're gonna go ahead and use the deck seal. Why do you think that is?
Just, you can't drain enough water off.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of welds together. So basically, this sticks to one another. I don't have an example, but it rolls on it welds together basically. So it performs better and low pitched. Now, then they have cedar shakes or cedar shingles is what they'll call them. The shakes are the real thick ones. Typically, you can't recover those because they're so rigid. And then they have shake shingles, and the shake shingles you can actually recover those. I don't suggest it, but you can. You guys will see it. You guys will see it a lot up here. You'll see 2 layers, 3 layers, and it'll get really thick. But typically, it's shake shingles. So if the homeowner, I mean, I wouldn't correct the homeowner on something like that, but it's shake shingles, not shake, or it's cedar shingles, not cedar shakes. They're two different things. Cedar shingles are what you see on siding.
Right.
And shakes are the real thick ones that you guys will see on the 80s homes that you guys have ran into. Those are shakes, the real thick ones, right? And then there's metal roofs. Now, why do we? What's a pro to a metal roof, RJ? It's
water
the-
resistant.
Yeah, I mean, our shingles are 50-year shingles too, though. You know what I mean? So it is pretty durable, right? Give me another thing to it. Another pro to
Probably longevity.
longevity. Even though we have 50-year shingles, another pro. Because we're a platinum contractor, right?
Yeah.
I mean, longevity. Our roofs are going to be are going to last a long time too. So give me another pro.
Durability as far as stormy weather and so on.
Sure. So do our shingles, but
Yeah.
something different. Okay, so metal roofs. So one of the main pros to a metal roof is where do you guys see these metal roofs at? Where do we see metal roofs at?
You know, the mountains.
Why do we see them on the mountains?
They're The snow and stuff.
The snow will slide off a lot faster, right? So that's why you see when you go up really high in the elevation, you'll see these. And actually, what you'll see is, whoops, you'll see that they at the eaves, like if you go to Mount Hood, they'll have a little kick out on them, so the snow actually doesn't go off of them, right? Because you'll be standing there and it'll just rush off. And, yeah, probably wouldn't feel too good, right?
Yeah.
Now there's some cons to them too, right? The price of it is loud. I don't think that they look too. I mean, it depends on where you're at. If you're in a residential, right?
Yeah.
If you're in a residential area and you put a metal roof on, it's gonna stand out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like it's gonna stand out like a sore thumb. Some people they love them, but you know, I mean, it'd be like wearing sandals to a ball or something. You know what I mean? Like everybody's there. You don't. It's not where you were standing. You can go to the beach and wear the sandals,
Yeah.
but you know, so. But the sandals work different. Like this is good. It's just not really too good on residential where you guys we're gonna be at, right? All right. So here's the little 3 tab. So that's a good shot of the 3 tab. If you look, this thing just doesn't want to work in here. But 1, 2, 3. That 3 tabs is 1 shingle. And then you have the architectural. This is the roof that we did a few years back, and you can see the metal valley. It's twisted to get the water off. The designer shingles are, we all know what the designer shingles are.
Yeah.
They're not 3 tab. They're just the real heavy shingles that are a little bit different. It makes you stand out real nice. And then you have the shakes. And then you have the tile. And actually, this tile job, I don't know if you guys ever noticed my crooked hand, but I almost lost my fingers on this job right here.
Oh.
So I took a picture of it, but I should have taken a picture. Actually, I did, but so it was pretty crazy on this job. Yeah, we were doing that job. That's probably like 10 years ago. All right, here's where the roof anatomy comes in. I do have a.
Did you, hold on, 'cause sorry, I wasn't here. The, chimney, did you guys go with the chimney?
I'm gonna go over here, but I want to go over the roofing anatomy, and then I'll go back to the chimney.
Yeah, just the separation from the
Yeah, exactly. I'll go over it. All right, so what we're gonna do is kind of go over now this roof right here. We're gonna go over the anatomy of roof like a skeleton, basically, right? So this roof right here is a roof that we actually did. We actually did the roof and the siding on this home, and it was so complex that I decided to use
Make a
it.
good example of it. yeah.
Stafford actually sold this one. The Hansons. It was a pretty big job. And these pictures that you're going to be seeing in it, they're not necessarily on this job. But, so, RJ, what's number 1?
That's the hip and ridge.
Good. Actually, it's not a hip, it's just a ridge,
Just a
right?
ridge, yeah.
Hip and ridge, it's kind of the same thing, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So ridge, we all understand what the ridge is. It can also, I think that ridge, we're not going to go in the vent. This is kind of the anatomy of the roof, but all right, number 2. What is this area called?
Well, that's
Mark?
Well, the white part of it, that's the fascia.
That is what's the area? So great, so great that you know that, right? So the board is called fascia board, but the area as a whole, what's the area as a whole? Down there by the gutter, right? What's this whole area called? There's a lot going on with it. There's a lot of components that go onto this, what? Eave, right? Eave. So the eave is like the area of it down there, right? So fascia is part of the eave. We'll get into the different areas of the eave here coming up. Well, what's this? RJ, now you're here. What is this? That's the hip, right? Yeah. So hip. I was actually supposed to give that to you guys later, but it's all good. I was supposed to give that to you guys later as part of the test. Exactly. That's my fault. It's all good. We'll follow along, guys. I just gave you guys the test to copy the test, so that's my bad. All right.
Oh, that one.
Okay. You guys ready? So, 4, right, is the gable, but this line needs to come off, right? And so the gable is kind of this triangle up there, right? The gable is kind of the triangle above it, Now below it right here, this is kind of the wall. It's just the wall, but it's the gable end. You can see the gable end, but it's the gable. The gable's the triangle above. All right. Little bonus, Mark. What's actually Chris? What's his little white line?
Belly band.
Belly band. There you go. All right. So it's not. You don't have to.
Credit.
It's just a little extra credit. Yeah. Extra credit. All right. 5. What's this area called, Tracy? Or RJ, whoever comes first. I wish I had like a little gift card.
Oh, yeah.
Money gun.
Who's got it first? Huh?
Money gun.
Yeah. Cash App. You guys don't know what this area called? Well, good thing we're here then. Starts with the R, and it's a tool. You guys have probably heard it. It's a tool, and it starts with the R.
Are we talking about rafters or something?
Rafters, it's close, but the area. Rafters are what goes on this area, but it's called the rake. So the rake edge.
Oh, well,
you
that's
guys-
because they call them rake rafters. Okay.
Yeah, you can call
'Cause
them
I
rake
had
rafters.
replaced those in my place.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Rake rafters. There you go. We
I'm
call
just
them barge.
talking
We call them barge boards.
Barge, yeah, that was the other
Or
one.
barge rafters or whatever. There you go. So that's the area, right? It's the area again, the rake edge. So you're gonna have rake metal. You're gonna have the area. If you're on the roof, you're like, hey, go to the rake edge and get the shingles over by the rake edge or whatever it is, right? It's the area. All right, let's go to 6. What's 6? Super simple. Tracy, I'm gonna pick on Tracy
Yeah,
today.
I know. It's like pick on me day.
No, it's just
Okay,
tune-up.
what-
It's tune-up.
The little line in the middle.
I wanna
would be
find
the-
Picture on the TV.
Oh, well, this is the problem. You-
That's why I'm
you
supposed to.
should
That's
get
why I'm
seen.
supposed to not have. I'm supposed to give that to you guys later. This is a test.
Yeah.
That's my fault. I gave it to you early.
Okay, so we're talking about the valley where it comes to. Is that what we're looking at on 6?
You said it, not me. Good job. It's Valley.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. So, ooh, this is a good one for Mark. What is this called? So these things that stick out of the house. If you're with a homeowner and you're like, "Hey, look at that thing sticking out of your house. That area right there, we're going to be replacing." But you don't want to say that area sticking out of your house, right? That doesn't. That makes you sound. That doesn't make you sound. Would you be comfortable with something? What is it?
That's a dormer.
Dormer. All right. Dormer. So make sure that you guys use those. This terminology will help you guys out a lot. So, bam, on to 8. So let me ask you a question before we move on. Is this a dormer right here? Kind of sticks out a little bit. It sticks out. But that's like a dormer, like when it's just kind of just sticking out of your roof, like something that your daughter sneaks out of. You know what I mean? At night, like that's a dormer, right? When there's a roof below your dormer that sticks out. All right. So what's this thing called? This 8. Like this is almost a dormer because there's a roof below it, right? Your daughter can still sneak out of that thing, or your son, whatever. But so 8. What is this? What is this right here? This thing, Stafford, I think, sold this one too. Way under. Why did he sell it under?
Because it's hard to measure, probably.
Because he didn't add into all the extra work that this thing was in. This thing took a day. That took a whole day to roof, and I was like, I'll take it, but dude, I'm not gonna do this unless you want to go back and get more or cancel the job.
Yeah.
This thing took a whole day for like a couple of guys. It took a while because just below it, like it was what was below. It was trees, and it was a. But you guys have to take pictures, call MOD, and say, hey, what's this? When you guys see something crazy like this,
Yeah.
but what do we call this?
Which is hat.
Witch's hat.
Really?
Well, all right, that's what that is what we call it. That's what I call it. I don't know what everybody else calls it. That's the way I was trained. But what else? I've heard people say a lot of different terms for this, right? RJ, what else could you call it? What else do people call it? You'll hear people say it.
First thing that came to my mind was it looks like a dunce cap.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. You can say that. Yeah, dunce cap. What else? Mark? I've never heard that one, but that's pretty cool.
I mean, I just figured it was I called it a dormer on my appointment with one
You can.
guy.
When it was it a point like this though?
Yeah,
Was it?
yeah.
Okay. So you want to say, what do we call it? What did I do? Where are we at so far with it?
Well, it's witch's hat.
There you go. Exactly. Or you can call it a turret. Some people call it like a turret.
I was thinking maybe something like Madonna would wear under her shirt.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so but basically, witch hat or turret, or I can't really think of any other names right now, but that's pretty much what
The
we call it.
expensive part.
Yeah, exactly. That thing up that expensive thing up there.
Yeah.
All right, what is
I
this
just
called?
call it money.
Yeah.
I just call it money.
There you go. See all that money?
Okay.
All right, so what's this area called, RJ? Or not area? I'm sorry, but what's this piece of wood called that goes?
Is that the front part, the fascia?
Yep, exactly. Good. How do you spell fascia, Tracy?
Is it F-A-S-C-I-A?
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, I had a problem. Yeah, it is
Okay, because I
F-A-S-C-I-A.
suck at spelling. But
So do
yeah,
I.
sure.
But
I had to do a lot of research.
I'm just keeping you guys awake, right? All right. So fascia board goes on the what area, RJ? What's that area called without looking at your paper?
The
The eave. Okay. 9 and 10. What is this area called under the eave, Mark?
Soffit.
Woo, there you go. Is this open or closed soffit? Open, right? So open or closed soffit, do you guys know the difference between it? RJ, do you understand the difference?
So like an open one would be like a vent, right?
Yeah, you would see. So you wouldn't see these. What are these called? And I wish that this was on here. They're not. I have these boards that go. The boards that go underneath the plywood really are called trusses, right? Or they're called rafters. What's the difference between a truss and a raft? What's the difference between a truss and a rafter, Mark?
Nothing.
Nothing. Yes, there is. There's the difference.
Isn't a truss like prefabricated?
Ooh, good job, man. Good job on that one. That's a good job. It is. So basically, when you have a truss, like stick frame homes, like the old homes, are trusses, and you won't see the metal in between the wood, right? So a truss comes on they come from the factory and they come out and then they load them on the roof, and that's the difference between a truss and a rafter.
Okay, soffit, a funny spelling too.
Soffit.
Okay.
Soffit. You know what's crazy is like I was thinking about lead, because I'm not the best speller either. I'm like lead, like how many different ways are to spell lead? Like I led the way LED and like LED
yeah.
like the lead,
Yeah.
right? Like the lead flashing. But so yeah, this is a closed soffit. Now you can have venting down here too. This is typically where you guys are going to see your ventilation, which I think that we'll get into. If we don't, we can go back to it. But some of this is, I don't know if you've seen this slideshow, so we'll kind of go over this really quick. On the appointment process, things you're going to look for on the roof are going to be, you're going to check the gutters on your inspection sheet, check for layers, check other components, check the shingle condition, check the chimney, take pictures for evidence and urgency. And here are some signs of roofs that are failing: granule loss, organic growth, lifting and curling, multiple layers, missing shingles, leaks and water stains, no ventilation or bad ventilation, and then your dry rot, right?
Right.
And I think that
Okay, what's the best way to notice dry rot? I mean,
great question.
What?
So dry rot, when you so first of all, what is dry rot, right? What is it? Dry rot is something that's been wet and it turns dry. Wet, dry, and it's dry. When it's dry, you'll see it, and you'll see it on so many homes. On a lot of times on the fascia boards or bar drafters,
Right.
or underneath the eaves, really close to the gutters.
Right.
And you can just take your finger. I like to do it right in front of them, and I'm just like, poke a hole. I'll poke a hole right in front of them.
Yeah.
I will. And they're like, well, don't damage your what?
Yeah.
This is shot, man.
Yeah.
Like, I can't, I'm sorry. That's like me,
It's not good, yeah.
you know what I mean? So I'll, just to show them that how bad it is, like, it's got to be, like, we have to get this done today. You know what I mean? And it's terrible. But that's what dry rot is. So if you guys see it, show the customers, or take a picture of it, or video if you're out there, because sometimes we're not always going to be out there with you, right?
Right.
What's that?
Stick your pen into it.
Yeah, stick your pen into it. Exactly. Boom. And it'll just stick.
stay there.
It'll stick. If it sticks, then
Oh, it is, okay. Because it
Alright,
just
same
becomes
thing.
like a sponge,
like
like a crumbly sponge.
It's like a burnt piece of toast.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Great.
Yeah.
And ventilation, you'll notice from the organic growth in there. Leaks and water stains are huge. Lifting, curling shingles. Why do they lift and curl? Because they get dry and they'll curl, right?
Using
Uh,
shingles, you'll see a lot. You know, and they're in people's yards and stuff like that, just patching a lot of the
Oh, yeah.
times.
Mhm.
That's a lot of times why shingles are falling off, because there was some patching areas. So
Mm-hmm.
pay attention for.
Yeah, look down on the ground. If you see shingle, that's huge.
Yeah,
They need
yeah.
a roof.
Or pieces of them.
Exactly. The inspection process, you guys probably went over this a little bit with Ryan, how to measure a roof. Did you guys go over that?
Yeah, quickly.
Okay, so use the pitch gauge app. I'm gonna go over it even quicker than he did. No,
Yeah.
but measure a roof. We can always go back, but some of you guys know how to do it. We got to get you guys have an appointment. Or I'm sure you guys got stuff to get to. But measure roof, calculating actual square footage, and length by width, and that's just a lot of stuff. The inspection attic. Ask before you look. We'll skip through this stuff. Ventilation. Now this is a whole day in itself, but we're gonna go over it in a nutshell, right?
There are YouTube videos that you can look
Yeah.
at.
Yep. There's tons of videos, but cold air in, hot air out, right? If they don't have cold air coming in, then you don't have any air coming out. Even if you can have all the ventilation out. If you don't have any air coming in, you won't get out. Vice versa. If you don't have any ventilation on the ridge cap, and you have intake ventilation, it's not doing anything. It's stagnant air. It's like a straw. Can you imagine taking a straw and putting your finger to the end of it and trying to suck? Even though it has one hole, it's not gonna do anything, right? And also with ventilation, we like to use, I'm sure Ryan talked about this, but we want to use one system, right? You have intake all the same, and you have exhaust. Especially for exhaust, because cold air can come in, but when it comes out, you'll see this it's really common to see somebody call up a roofer and they're like, hey, can you guys come give me a solar attic fan or an attic fan? And the roofer will come there and slap a hole in and call it good. No, it doesn't work like that. Here's why. So just use your imagination. If you take a straw, right, and you start poking holes in it,
Yeah.
right, and you have a glass cube, and the straw is going to the hole of the glass cube, and you start sucking. The object is to get all the smoke out. Let's say we filled it with smoke, and we had a machine. Well, it's going to suck. It's going to go to the least resistant point to get all the air out. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So explain it to a customer like that. And you don't want to beat them up about it, but you want to advise them why they have to get rid of their stupid attic fan with all the other vents, or we can use just use attic vents, or exhaust vents, and plug up the other holes. Does that kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. If you guys have rake vents, then somebody should be putting some cardboard up there and blocking those off as well, because you don't want too many just different systems going on with. But that, like I said, this is a whole day really. So what kind of vents are there? What kind of roof vents are there for the exhaust? I don't think I have any pictures on this, but you guys can. So you need to update this. Okay, here we go. So let's just go over what we can think of for exhaust vents. Mark?
Well, yeah. Cool been happening there, yeah. Trying to remember what I was, getting back into my presentation. We have our,
So exhaust vents, we're trying to get rid of ventilation for the attic.
Alright,
One
yeah,
is
we have the ridge vent, and then we have these box vents as well.
yeah, exactly. What else do we have as far as exhaust that we could use? We could use those, right? Some people hate the look of, or they just don't like the idea. Some people are really old school, and you're just pushing them as hard as you can to do the right way to do it. And some people are just like, I don't want that. I just want to keep it normal. You're not gonna, you're gonna do your best to explain it why, but ultimately you're not going to just sit there and combat them and try to get them to understand. Some people have 99% of the people won't mind, but that one person, right, will love it, or won't like it.
Don't fight them, write them.
Yeah, well, you can do that too, but I mean, I'd probably write them. No, but I understand. Just use your skills and tell them why.
Sure.
Nobody does this anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? Give me another example, because so we use box vents, turtle vents. You can call them that, or. And then you have the ridge vents that we use, and then RJ.
Solar attic fans.
There you go. Solar attic fans are just attic fans. Tracy, I already said it. Give me another example of attic, or of exhaust ventilation. Gable vents.
Oh.
Right. So those
I
little.
thought that was going in. Okay.
So yeah, no, a lot of people think that, right? But they're actually
Okay.
They're actually exhaust
yeah,
vents on the gable. They're up pretty high. You'll see those. Those are for the roof too, right? And they're on the siding. So keep a lookout for them, right?
Are those the ones you'll see like a little? I mean, sometimes they'll have a decorative little.
Yeah,
thing
exactly,
on it,
yeah. I don't
Have
know
you ever
if
seen
it's-
Christmas Vacation? Movie Christmas Vacation,
Yeah,
Chevy
yeah.
Chase. He's sticking his head out one while he's yelling at the family where they're going to the mall.
So plumbing vent. What's up with this plumbing vent?
That looks
Oh,
like
holy shit.
water waiting to
Hey
happen.
man, we actually just roofed. This is actually
no.
a new roof.
The top was
It was.
actually-
I think this. It looks bad because of it needs a couple little. I know that should be painted, but it's actually a new vent. But it needs to be a little bit of. It needs to rain. But at any rate, though, this is for plumbing, right? So if anybody asks you, this is really part of the roof, because it comes out of the roof. But just so you guys can explain, or just so you guys can understand what this thing, what does this do? Does anybody know what?
That's
Not.
venting the pipe.
But what does it do exactly? What is it for? It's to get the smell out, right? It's to get the ventilation out, because you have the toilet comes down with water in it, and there's a pipe that goes up and the water goes down. So it'll up and go down. So it's to vent to get the water down and the smell as well.
Yeah.
So if you've ever been up there, those things can tend to smell pretty nasty if you're roofing around them. But so therefore, they're not for the ventilation of the attic though. They're for plumbing. That's all you guys have to know. Say, I don't know. I'm not a plumber. I'm in the roofing industry. But that's what they're for. Yes, we do install new flashings for them, right? We don't use the OD pipe flashings up there. These flashings are 50 years. They're lifetime flashings. And the cool thing about these compared to like a lead pipe flashing is a lead pipe flashing is fixed, meaning that when you order the materials up, you're like, I want a 612, I want a 712, I want 812, 912. So the problem with that is it's a headache. Rather than these will bend to whatever pitch you have.
Right.
Really though, you just grab them and put them on. Plus they last a lifetime. Now if you just use ODs, which are probably 90% of the flashings that you got. Go do this. Look at this right here, and go look at any roof you guys get on in the next whenever. They're not going to have this on because these are new, right? And they're going to be all cracked out and worn seals and all that. These don't do that.
What do you call those?
They're called lifetime flashings. Ultimate. What are they called? Ultimate pipe flashings.
Ultimate pipe check.
Yeah. It'd be cool to have a little. I think it might be in the. I'm not sure if it's in the pitch book or not, but is it in the pitch book? So yeah, we'll come across it and be in the pitch book. So basically, here's what you guys can do: is when you guys are inside of a home and those people did not get specific about these, right? They're dropping the ball. Is because what'll happen is, they're probably using OD pipe, and people do it all the time. They got a 50-year roof or like a designer roof that's 50 years, and they put up the OD pipe flashings. Those flashings are going to last 20 years. Doesn't even make sense to give you a 50-year roof, and if you're going to be using a crummy pipe flashing, right? So it makes absolutely no sense. Intake vents, what are these called? They're intake vents, but Venture, right? Owens Corning Venture. Ridge vent, smart vents. This is Venture exhaust, right?
Mm-hmm. I have a question.
What's up?
Can you put the ridge vent on and not the intake vents?
Yeah. If you have adequate intake ventilation, then sure, you can use the ridge vent.
How do we know that?
How do you know what?
I mean, I know.
How do you know? Well, that's like I said, that's a whole other class. We're in anatomy today, but that's all. I mean, it's a calculation. You calculate it out, right? So if I had a whiteboard and a little sheet that you guys can write all out, it'd be a lot easier. But for today, we're not going to get into that. But Justin's really a guru at that, so Justin will lose my talk about pie and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like what?
Jeez.
So that's why that's why Stafford. You know what Stafford does? Let's add it. We know we're covered that way. Let's add the intake, and we're doing the exhaust. That way we know we're covered. Justin will do the calculation on how much he needs to add and all that stuff, right? Box vent.
Don't forget to charge for the intakes, though.
Yeah. So for tomorrow we're done. All right. There is another one I think, but what time is it?
11:30.
You guys want to take a break and come back? I think I might have a little bit more. I mean, I can go. Do you want to go talk a little bit about shingles, or did you pretty much sew that up?
I think the chimney thing.
Oh yeah, let's go back to
chimney
that.
thing.
Yeah, let's go back to that.
I don't even, as far as counter flashing and base flashing, I just told them just to do base flashing every time and production will work it out. But I think it would be
Didn't we have a video? Didn't I just put a video?
You showed me one.
I think I just had.
I thought you had one.
We just had a video of that,
Yeah.
like last week. I'll show you guys here. Okay, so look, here it is. Don't pay attention to. Oh yeah, let's go back to the flashing because I was going to do roofing anatomy
Oh, yeah.
before I got into flashing. That way you understood where everything went. Because the first, I know it was. I'm not touching it. So
Hey, I have a question. Customer asked me this last week. So you pull my old roof off, and you're not going to put new plywood down. What's going to happen with all the holes that are in my plywood?
What holes from the nails?
The old nails.
Well, those are going to get covered up, and we're going to put the odds of us putting a nail in each hole is
Sure.
slim to none, right?
They're just getting covered up by deck defense.
Yeah. So
Right.
okay, so that's a great question though, right? So let's go into a little bit more detail about what we fasten these shingles with. What do we fasten them with, and what can you? What's out there?
Oh,
You know, Tracy?
galvanized nails, what we use?
No, that's, believe me, I was asking when we were training about that.
Yeah.
How big are the nails? What are they?
So yeah, so that's a great question. So that's not really too much of anatomy, but it is kind of the anatomy. So what we use is nails, right? 1.25 inch nails. They have to penetrate through the wood a little bit. And another fastener that you can use, that I use, that you guys are gonna run into, are staples. Now they don't even allow you to use staples anymore, right? Why do you think that they don't allow you to use staples?
Probably not strong enough.
They blow right off.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna blow right off. All right.
We'll never rust too. I mean, there isn't really
Yeah.
any.
They're whack. Put it that way.
Yeah, this is, yeah.
They're whack, right? All right, flashing, drip edge flashing, right? Where are we gonna put the drip edge? This is obviously drip edge flashing. This isn't really the picture. So we use 3 inches up on the roof and 1 inch down into the gutters, and the gutters go behind the flashing. So this gets installed on every single roof, and a lot of times you guys will go out there and you guys will not see this.
It's hardly ever there.
It's hardly ever there, right? So that's something to point out. Take a picture of it, show them when you're showing them your inspection report, show them that they don't have any, and say, oh, see how this is, that's why it's rotting, because you didn't have any of this,
Yeah.
right?
That's why you need
So it
fixing
protects you, yeah.
And it should help you with judging how old the roof is or if it's been replaced or not. Because more often than not, when we see the drip edge, it's probably been replaced in the last
I say, when did they start
15
using
years,
it?
right?
Okay.
So, if we're questioning whether or not the roof has been replaced, that might be an indication on whether or not it has or has not, right?
Oh.
We have drip edge metal, we have metal valleys, having problems with the roof, we're out there to replace it. More than likely it's been replaced because new construction, they're probably not doing that.
No. Yeah, new construction doesn't put this stuff on at all.
Oh,
Really?
okay.
Yeah, no. Why do you think that is? Too much money.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
That's exactly. They go super cheap new construction.
Oh, sure.
Not 99% of the guys don't put it on. All right. All right. So drip edge, it goes along the bottom. This is actually rake edge. I'm not sure where this picture was taken from. I think it was probably taken from something. So this is what you're going to get when you do a new construction house, is a guy that doesn't know what he's doing, right? So the problem with this is first of all, this is 90 degrees, and it doesn't there's no the gutter guy's going to want to punch you in the mouth when the gutter guy gets out here and wants to get his gutters behind here.
Sure.
It will not fit behind there, right? Another reason is this isn't far enough back. This is probably an inch. We want to go 3 inches. So 3 inch by 1 inch minimum. So sometimes we'll do 2 by 3, but at least 3 inches on the roof. So this picture was, I don't know, I mean, sorry that is the demonstration, but I mean, this picture needs to be changed out. All right. So we use rake metal, T metal along the rakes. See, this is a good picture. This is what we do. This is what we use, is T metal. Why is it T metal? Because it looks like a T. Now, why don't we use this kind of metal? This is called D metal, right? There's a bunch of different metals, but there's only one. It's 90 degrees and there's one little crease on it, right? I don't remember what that crease is called, but what are these for?
Helps the debris run off maybe over the gutter, bigger debris.
But why? No, not necessarily.
No.
But why do they make these bends? I don't remember what crimps. Why do they make these crimps in the metal?
Probably durability, they're stronger.
I mean, there's a couple reasons. So one of them is to kind of get this water out of here, so it doesn't just go straight down the fascia board, or the barge board, right? What's another reason?
It's stronger.
Stronger, right?
100%.
Absolutely. So if you just did
10,000%
90
science.
degrees, right, and you're carrying the stuff, it'll start bending. It'll actually look terrible when you put it on the roof, because as you put it on the roof, you'll see the waves inside of the metal. You getting confused? Okay. Step flashing. Now there's step flashing, right? Step flashing goes anywhere where the roof meets a wall, right? And this is a really bad example of it. We got valley flashing, but here's this. So basically you have, this is base flashing right here, right, on a chimney. The base flashing, don't look at this right here. This is just, this needs to be, I was working on this morning, I just slammed it out a little bit quick, but I need to adjust this a little bit. But that's basically, the base flashing is on here on the bottom, and then the counter flashing is on here that comes out of the chimney. This is the counter flashing. Why is it called counter flashing? That's the counter flashing, this is the base flashing. Base, counter, base, counter, base, counter. Why is it called counter flashing, Mark?
It just prevents water from running in behind the back.
Exactly. Absolutely. So if you didn't have this on, it would leak like a sieve because it's going over all these, right? All right, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I don't know about you guys, but I just like to train. It feels good. I should have been a teacher or something. I like to give all my knowledge to you guys and to people here. Unfortunately, I wish that you guys can ask questions. If you guys were here live, it would have been kind of cool. But this video was pretty fun to make, and I really appreciate it. So if you guys haven't already, smash that like button and hit subscribe if you guys like this roofing anatomy. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good day.